Hoi hoi, humans. Welcome to my stupid opinions. So I'm doing this video because of the murder of the black guy by the white officer in Minneapolis and the subsequent riots, but more particularly how those riots are being justified by people. So first things first, is the officer, should he be punished? Yes, he should. They got fired. Hopefully they're going to be put in jail. Specifically the officer that was responsible for the murder, he should go to jail for murder and be sentenced to anywhere from like a whole lot of years to life to death. He was not allowed to be on the person's neck with his knee. So you can put your neck on a knee of a person if in like a combat situation, but you can't put your knee on the neck of a person. You can put your knee on the shoulder of a person in an arrest situation when the person's resisting arrest. So what he did was illegal and disgusting, and he's already gotten fired, and hopefully he'll be going to jail for a long time. Now the other question is, are the riots so justified? So let me just give you, there's going to be a Ben Shapiro video that I'm commenting on basically, and so he talks very smart. I'm going to talk dumb for a second, and so just listen to what I have to say here. Okay, does a black cop killing a black person give you the right, if you're black, to take whatever you want from Target? No. Does a black man killing a rival black drug dealer give black people the right to burn down buildings? No. Does a white cop killing a black man justify taking whatever you want from Target, or does it give you the right to burn down buildings? Yes? Like, okay, so one more thing. So all people who like burning down buildings and stealing shit from places have to wait for a shitty white person to kill a black person unfairly. So do whites have the right to burn down black neighborhoods and take black people's things when a black person kills a white person? I think we all agree, no. Okay? And I'm sure black cops have killed white people who were unarmed. Does that make it in the news? Absolutely not. Does that give white people the right to take shit from black people? Absolutely not. So the question here is not, was this officer evil and wrong, and does he deserve to go to jail? Everybody agrees yes. And if this was 1960, you might get you might get people back in 1960 be like, yeah, that black guy, got what's coming to him, blah, blah. Right? But like nobody is saying that, right? So to say that white cop killing the black guy in Minnesota was somehow like evidence of like everybody's racist and black people can just break shit and burn shit down. So also, I guess what's important here is if we're trying to talk about the narrative of like, black people are always getting killed by white people, especially white cops. They're hunted, right? They're hunted the minute they leave their house. Okay, so there is and I'm going to put this on the bottom. There's a study by NPR, National Public Radio, liberal as fuck place. They did a study in 2019. The new study says white police officers are not more likely to shoot minority suspects. Okay, so what this is saying is that even if, so what this article talks about is, if you look at the race of the suspects and you look at the rate of police getting called to a certain race's house for violence, right? So if, let's just say there's, for every 100,000 calls the cops get to white people's house where there's violence going on, and for every 100,000 calls that police officers have to go to for black people's houses that are where there's violence there. There is an equal number of like shootings, like per capita is not the right word, but per call, right? So each, whether it's white or black, it's like 0.0000 blah 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 16 for both, or whoever knows. It's not the correct number. You're not more likely to die if you're a black person by a white cop or black cop, because it's equal, right? Because you are black. It's based on occasional shitty things happening when police are responding to shitty things. Okay, so like shitty things happen, cops call, normally things go okay. Sometimes shitty things happen and then cops do shitty things, right? And there's no evidence to show that it's it's based on race. It's based on happenstance and statistics, right? So like in 1960, I'm sure that that you're more likely to get killed by a cop, but that's not the case now, right? So here it is. Joseph Cicero. The race of a police officer did not predict the race of the citizen shot. In other words, black officers were just as likely to shoot black citizens as white officers were. Okay. So here's Ben Shapiro being much smarter than me and talking much faster than me. But he doesn't mention this article, and I wanted that article being there because I was having an argument with my mom 5 years ago during the hands up, don't shoot stuff. And I was on the side of Black Lives Matter. And I go, and I had everything that the liberals say, I was saying to my mom. And I was a Republican at this time, but I was like, it's obvious. Oh, the statistics are in. And she's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, I'm going to Google this. So I Googled this like 2 years ago or whatever during Hands Up, Don't Shoot, or however long ago that was. And, or during some other white on black thing with cops. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, it's not racism, it's shitty cops, stupidity, and the law of averages. Okay? So, black people do not have the right to steal shit, break shit, and burn shit, because it's not a systematic racism that this is happening. It's equal shitty cops doing shitty things to people who they get called to like deal with, right? And it's very rare. And these cops are wrong. Should go to jail, death penalty, whatever. I mean, he killed him, and he did it in an unjust way. His knee had to be on his shoulder, not his neck, unless he thought his life was under threat. So, like in Afghanistan, you could put your knee on a neck of like a Taliban who is like just shooting at you or something, but you can't do that with a citizen who's just resisting arrest. Okay. Watch a little Ben Shapiro, read the article that I'm putting down in the thingy, description box or whatever, and do your own investigation. Don't take what the news first says, like, and especially don't let people like justify riots. It's not justifiable this day and age, and maybe never. But definitely not now, and not if you look at facts and statistics.
Than what appears to be the manslaughter and or murder of a human being, but deeply despicable politically and really bad for the country in suggesting that when a bad thing happens, that thing innately demonstrates American racism, and then you don't even have to provide evidence. The allegation is itself the evidence of the racism. Right? And evidence of America's broad-based racism, even if America rejects the action itself. So LeBron James did this again. LeBron James has an unfortunate habit of injecting himself into controversies in ways that are not well informed. Now, listen, I appreciate that, again, LeBron James, I think, tries to be politically active. That's fine. He's entitled to his opinion. That doesn't mean that he's entitled to be this deeply wrong. So LeBron James, he's not entitled to his own set of facts, in other words. LeBron James put up this thing on his Instagram in which he compared the officer, Derek Chauvin, kneeling on the neck of this George Floyd, unfortunate human being, and Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and said, this is why. He says, do you understand now, or is it still blurred to you? Hashtag stay woke. Well, no, it's still blurred to me, because Colin Kaepernick was not kneeling to protest police brutality alone. He was kneeling because his suggestion is that America tolerates police brutality, that America is pro-police brutality, that America is racist, that the American flag represents racism. And that is nasty, and it is garbage, and it is not true. And you know who knows that's not true? LeBron James, who has done extraordinarily well in America, and he should, because he's an incredibly talented human being. And his color has not been an obstacle to him being incredibly successful in the United States. That's a very good thing. Colin Kaepernick's color was not an obstacle to him being a success in the United States. No, the point was that was not why Colin Kaepernick was kneeling. Colin Kaepernick was wearing socks with pigs on them, dressed up as cops, as though all cops were pigs. The conflation of a bad cop with racist cop, and then that conflation of racist cop with all of America, is really quite despicable. And again, unsupportable by evidence. It divides us in ways that are just unthinkably bad, unthinkably wrong. Because the fact is that there are so many Black Americans who have fought for that flag. There's so many Black Americans who serve in police forces. There's so many Black Americans who are law-abiding citizens, and so many Black Americans who rightly fight this kind of stuff in the proper ways. That conflating people who are doing it in stupid and divisive and nasty ways with that is just, it's completely ridiculous and silly. And you're seeing this sort of thing arise in Minnesota. So in Minnesota overnight, there were a bunch of protests, and protests are fine, right? That's a First Amendment right. What is not a First Amendment right is breaking into the Target and looting it. I remember we had the LA riots in my home city. I believe that was 1994, the LA riots. So I believe I was 10 at the time. And I remember LA burning. So it was 1992, so I was 8. And Maxine Waters called it the LA uprising. Burning down stores and stealing TVs is not an uprising. It's you being a piece of crap. Okay, that's not in any way excusing police brutality. I'm wondering how smashing the cash registers at Target is solving police brutality exactly. How exactly is you breaking into a Target and then ransacking the shelves, solving police brutality, or burning down an AutoZone, which is another thing that happened in Minneapolis last night? It's disgusting. I'm sorry, looting is disgusting. Rioting is disgusting. And no, it is not justified by this sort of stuff. It is not justified by the Derek Chauvin case. Protests outside the police station are justified by all this sort of stuff, but I'll tell you things that are not justified by this sort of stuff. Breaking into the Target, which is completely unrelated. Smashing store windows. There was a tape of 2 guys who had gone to their local store in Minneapolis, and they were standing outside their store with guns, saying the cops have been basically told to stand down. We're not going to stand down. We're going to protect our property. By the way, they should be protesting the police. These two things are not mutually exclusive. You can very much understand the protests of the police, even though the police, by the way, did the right thing and fired these guys, and there will be prosecutions, I am sure. But the attempt to excuse rioting is utterly asinine. And you're seeing a lot of that online right now. Well, the anger is justified. The anger is just, you're not stealing a TV because you're angry. You're stealing a TV because you want a TV. You burning down an AutoZone is not you being angry. You burning down an AutoZone is because you're a criminal and you feel like burning down an AutoZone. Sorry, that's not the way this works. There are a lot of angry people in American politics. Does any of that mean that you get to go and loot the local grocery? Obviously not. It's absurdity piled on absurdity. And then you had the riots there was I would call it a riot. I suppose in Los Angeles, people attacking cop cars, like full on attacking cop cars. There's footage of people smashing cop car windows, gathering around cop cars and attacking police officers who had nothing to do with this in a completely different city. Anytime you say things like, well, the anger is justified. The anger is justified. I don't care about whether your feelings are justified. I care mostly about whether your actions are justified. First of all, your feelings against an unrelated police officer are probably not justified. Let's just put it that way. And your feelings against Target are certainly not justified. But the attempt to sort of shy away from exposing bad behavior and to pretend that bad behavior is not happening here is insipid and ridiculous on every level. And again, very bad for the country and bad for the protesters, by the way. If you want sympathy for your protest, then you should not unify with the looters and with the rioters. And I haven't seen the protesters doing that, by the way, by and large. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter trying to pretend that if you pay attention to the looting, you're a bad person. That if you pay attention to the fact that Minneapolis was in flames last night, so much so that satellites were picking up the smoke, that if you pay attention to that somehow you're ignoring the underlying crime that happened. But as always, many things can be true at once. You burning down an AutoZone makes you a piece of crap. You know what else makes you a piece of crap? Even more a piece of crap? Kneeling on the neck of a person until they die. That makes you like the worst piece of crap. But among other pieces of crap who are less bad, but also pieces of crap, are people who loot targets because they feel like stealing bleep. And people who put up signs on the sides of buildings while they're burning down an unrelated building saying F the police. None of this is justified. It's not. Okay, and to pretend it is, and to go soft on it, or to suggest that all of this is deeply indicative of underlying American racism, and therefore you can burn down the target because the target is just part of the giant superstructure of America, and it's supported by capitalism, and it's insured anyway. Seriously, disgusting. Truly disgusting. And here's the thing, again, it doesn't have to be this way. None of this has to be this way. We could all agree on this stuff, but we have deliberately decided that we are not going to agree on this stuff. Instead, we are going to read into evidence things which have not yet been evidenced. And as we'll see, we're going to carry this over to even the most minute and stupid of conflicts. So at least in this case of Derek Chauvin, you could see the jump. But in many other cases that are popping up on Twitter, like every 2 days now, there's an attempt to attribute to America more broadly and to American history and to the deep superstructure of American racism instances in which there's no actual evidence of racism. We're just going to destroy people on Twitter now for no apparent reason. We're going to get to that in just